The UFC have been announcing fights at a rapid fire, and UFC 311 is starting to look really good. I mean, we got Jiri Prochazka versus Jamahal Hill. That is a banger, ladies and gentlemen. And this fight is probably about, 2 years in the making now since Jamahal Hill dropped his belt. Look, these two are two former UFC light heavyweight champions. They're both going to bring a scrap. I mean, Jiri Prochazka's style is so hard and complex to deal with. The only man that's really been able to manage it is Alex Pereira, at least in the UFC, and he demolished him twice. And Jamahal Hill, yes, he's a great striker. He's got a great right hand and a great left hook, but at the end of the day, he leaves his chin completely exposed, and his hand is always by his hip. But nonetheless, still a great fighter. I think if someone were to win this fight, I think it's gonna be Jiri. I don't know how Jamahal Hill's gonna be able to deal with Jiri's strikes, whether it be with his elbows, his kicks, you name it. I just don't know. And I think with Jamahal Hill, ever since the Alex Pereira fight and that injury he suffered with his knee, is he still the same explosive fighter he was then? We didn't see him much against Alex, and I think if he were to win this fight against Jiri Prochazka, he's gonna have to utilize his wrestling. He's gonna have to take down Jiri Prochazka and try to deal with him there. We've seen Jiri since he's came into the UFC, especially in the Glover fight. He did really good in dealing with Glover's takedowns. I mean, he stuffed them. He was able to manage through Glover's ground and pound and jiu-jitsu and won that fight. Jamahal Hill too, man. He completely destroyed Glover in their fight, man. It was not close at all. Glover was just a sack of potatoes just getting ran through by Jamahal Hill, but it was nuts to see. But like I said, I really just don't think Jamahal Hill has enough on the table to beat Jiri Prochazka. I think Jiri Prochazka just has more tools in the shed that he can pull out in this fight and get the W. So I'm just gonna go with Jiri Prochazka. There's also another fight announced for UFC 311. Kevin Holland versus Ritter. Look, this is gonna be a decent fight. I think these two stylistically is a great matchup. I mean, Kevin Holland's a bit of a scrapper. His jiu-jitsu is decent. Same with Ritter. He's more of a grappler. These guys are both about average fighters. I don't think none of them bring much to the table when it comes to contending for a title. But I think out of these two, I think Ritter just gets the edge off of Kevin Holland, and it should be a good 3-round fight. When Ritter fought GM3, it was a good scrap. Arguably GM3 beating Ritter in the first round, and after that Ritter just pulled some shit out of his ass to get the W. I don't see much of note when it comes to these two contending for a title, but out of these two, I got Ritter beating Kevin Holland. I just don't think Kevin Holland, after the Delite fight, it's just, I don't know. Kevin Holland's very hit or miss. So I think Ritter is going to probably coast through a split decision against Kevin Holland and just get the W. And there's more fights announced. This is our different cards now. This is for Riyadh, Saudi Arabia, the UFC Fight Night card there. We got Vinicius Oliveira fighting Saad Nurmagomedov. I always say this thing when it comes to Russians fighting Brazilians. You never bet against a Russian beating a Brazilian, because it's always going to happen. Unfortunate. And look, Brazilians' track record in the Middle East is not good at all, man. We are terrible fighting in the Middle East. Look at Charles Oliveira. Look at every Brazilian fighter that fought in the UFC 308 card. We got absolutely demolished and robbed from start to finish on that card, and it sucked. But look, Vinicius Oliveira, he's great on the feet, man. He's got some fucking power to him. He's got loaded hands, loaded kicks. That KO he did against Bernardo Sopal, that was completely insane. He coached through Ricky Simon through 3 rounds, which was good to see from him. But Saad Nurmagomedov, man, he is just well-rounded in general as an MMA fighter. And I think he's going to pick Vinicius Oliveira apart. And it's going to be really hard for Vinicius to deal with that. And Saad hasn't fought in a while. And knowing how it is out there in Saudi Arabia when it comes to the Dagestanis and all them, Saad Nurmagomedov's just gonna beat him. I just don't know what more to say but give Saad Nurmagomedov the W by decision. And another fight I want to talk about is Anthony Fluffy Hernandez facing off Brandon Allen. Look, this fight was announced a couple weeks ago. I mean, I might as well talk about it now than later, but I figured since we're talking about Jiri, we might as well talk about all these other fights. But look, this is going to be a good-ass fight. Dude, I think Anthony Hernandez is the dark horse of the division. Not a lot of people are talking about him and giving him enough credit. He's a very well-rounded MMA fighter, man. He choked out Rodolfo Vieira on the ground, and he beat him at his own game of jiu-jitsu. Like, the guy is vicious. And his last fight against Michel Pereira, he fucking bulldozed through Pereira through 5 rounds. He just demolished him completely. He destroyed Kopylov. I mean, he's been running through these guys left, right, and center in the middleweight division. And Brendan Allen, look, he's coming off a tough loss against Nasruddin Imavov. But at the same time, Brendan Allen is pretty one-dimensional. He's really just only good at the ground. And he's been completely exposed by Imavov in this case. And the Chris Curtis fight was also another fight that he had a hard time with. That, you know, he had a great heart in surviving that, but he had a hard time dealing with Chris Curtis in their fight. He almost got knocked out a couple of times. And I think Anthony Hernandez, he's just a lot more well-rounded than Brendan Allen. And I just don't see Brendan Allen coming out with a W on this one. I gotta go with the boy Fluffy Anthony Hernandez. I think after he beats Brendan Allen, he's gonna make a run for the title, and it's gonna be a hard time for motherfuckers in the top 5 to beat a guy like Anthony Hernandez. So that's just my opinion. Let me know what you think about all these announcements and these upcoming UFC fights. And also, who do you think's gonna win these fights? Let me know in the comments below. Anyways, people, good game, boys. Catch you later. Deuces. I'm out.